video required? I didn't see that. You guys are talking about a video?
No, not a video.
Okay.
I'm not
I was
talking
like,
about a video. There's a question asking if you have a dispatch
oh
FA
no, not that part.
certificate.
No,
No,
not
I
that
think
part.
that they emailed us back and had us do a video interview.
Oh, okay. That's what I'm
If you
talking
get that
about.
in your email, check your junk email.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, like they always send it, and I have even like turned on all my settings. In 8 years with SkyWest, it still goes to junk mail. So check your junk mail, because there was, whenever you did it, there was a time frame of, they'll give you like 5 days. They'll send the email, say, oh, you've been invited to do a video interview, do it within this many days. So check your junk mail. If not, we could get Kelly's information.
Yeah, it might say from Kelly Vincent too. It might not say from SkyWest.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, very good. So I spoke with Bill Kirshner today. He's the director of OCC Dispatch. And so he gave me a little bit of insight as to the date that they're looking at going forward for interviews. So they're doing a little bit different this time. They typically divide the interviews into 2 different batches. Out of town people, like, people that don't live in the St. George area, and then local people. So typically what they do is they set up all the out of town interviews first, and they drive down to Las Vegas, and they fly everybody into Vegas, and they do the interviews all down there at the airport for like 2 or 3 days. And then they come back to St. George and do all the local interviews. However, they're doing it backwards this time. They're going to do all the local interviews. And the reason for this primarily is I think it has a lot to do with the success of the class, because the last 2 times that they've done the out of town interviews first, they've ended up hiring a lot more of the local people than the out of town people. So, well, I shouldn't say a lot more, about 50-50. The last class was about 50-50. So, but they kind of what he told me this morning is that they want to start giving the local people, looking at the local people first, and deciding, how many out of that group they know that they're for sure going to take before they do the out of town interviews. And that's because they want to give the local SkyWest, SkyWest internal employees and local area employees and stuff like that, and from our class. Not that they're giving them first preference, although technically it kind of is like giving them preference, because they definitely prefer to hire out of this group. So they want to know how many they're going to be taking out of that group, so that they'll know how many they have to hire from out of town later on. So, but that kind of puts us at a little bit of a handicap. As nice and flattering as it is that they're doing it, it kind of changes the ball game a little bit for us. So because they're doing the local interviews first, those are going to be held on October 26th and 27th. So
October,
yes. Oh no, sorry, I'm sorry. I don't even know
Oh
what
my!
I'm in anymore.
You gave me a heart attack over here, Adam.
Sorry. I was looking at something that said October a minute ago, and then I just got that stuck in my head. Sorry, March 26th and 27th. For some reason, I was like stuck on the last class. So the last time they did the interviews, and so yeah, sorry, my bad. March 26th and 27th. So thanks for correcting me there. So,
why I'm here.
Yes. So with that being said, it's going to come up a little bit quicker. So you can already, those of you that are currently in the class, as you can already just look ahead and do your own math and see that that is going to be a very tight timeline. In order to interview, you have to have passed the practical test and have a temporary dispatch certificate in hand. So basically, we have to finish up the class, which it finishes on the 23rd, and then have to do your practical essentially within those next 3 days. So it's going to be absolute crunch time. Maybe a fourth day if you get the 27th. They're going to go ahead and set up the interviews based, for anybody that applied, based on assuming that you're going to pass and have it ready to go. However, he just asked me to keep in touch with him for anybody that may not be able to make that deadline. They'll just simply cancel the interview, and it won't be like a detrimental factor to anybody, but it would just be carried forward to the next time they hire is all. So anyway, so that is the timeline. They are going to be hiring again rather quickly as well, it sounded like. And so if for some reason you don't make it on this current one, which I know it is going to be tough for some of you, but if you don't make it in on the current one, then the next one sounds like it's going to be sometime before the end of summer, so that they'll actually hire again. So anyway, does anybody have any questions on that?
What were those dates again, Adam?
The dates for the local interviews are going to be March 26th and 27th. That is a Monday and a Tuesday. A little less than 3 weeks away.
Yeah, from what I understand, they're actually going to be bringing in at least the next 2 classes back to back. So this class will be done on the training on the floor, and the next training class is going to be, starting their floor training right after they get on the floor. So it's going to be back to back to back. So
yeah, which is good news. So I'm gonna be in St. George. Obviously, many of you already know. I'll be there the 19th through the 23rd is what it looks like. So, but I'm going to be meeting with Bill a couple times that week as well again, and then I'll get more information at that point on future class dates as well as the start date for the class they're hiring for now. I asked him about it this morning, and he wasn't 100% for sure. It did sound like it was going to be like a late April start date. So, but he said that might scoot into May. It depends on this current class. The one that Garrett is in now. They're getting all trained and checked out. So over the next month and a half. So a lot of it just depends on that, but they'll know obviously by the time they interview and extend any offers. So so does anybody have any questions about that stuff before we dive into some of the interview prep stuff?
Adam,
Yeah.
my only question would be if the last day of the class is on the 23rd, we would have the 24th and the 25th if we are ready to take our practical.
Yeah.
Will the examiner be available for those days? And I am aware that Marissa is first because she is coming from so far away.
Yeah. I talked to Greg. Greg's the examiner, but he will be available. He's been planning those days. And he knows of the timeline crunch as well, so he's going to make his schedule available that whole weekend, and he's trying to also find out. He's been limited, depending on who he talks to at the FAA. They limit them sometimes to only being able to do 2 a day, and he's trying to get approval to be able to do more than 2 a day. So. But he'll let me know on that. But yeah, he is planning on being available to do those. So, and it's also so he'll be able to. He'll have Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Obviously is the 26th, but he'll have that day ready as well. And you never know too, if they decide to add more interviews or maybe even do some additional interviews after, that may be the case. But for right now, SkyWest is only planning on the 26th and 27th. So, but those of you that get the 27th as your interview date can obviously, go up until the 26th as well. So,
And I want you guys to know too, if those of you in my class right now, if you're worried about taking the test so soon after class, it's actually the perfect time to take the test because everything is fresh on your mind. It's also a really good time to interview because you don't lose it. So don't worry about that part. You guys will be a lot more ready than you think you are. So.
Yeah, the big key ingredient to that, though, is for those of you that have not completed the ADX yet, you do obviously have to have the ADX done before you can take the practical. So that obviously can be a hurdle as well. So, but those that are done with it, obviously just got to finish class and then can immediately do your practical. So we will work on getting that set up accordingly. And obviously everybody, as far as you guys are thinking on, any concerns with your own preparation or anything else, just, keep some good open communication with Garrett and I so that we kind of know where you stand so that we can kind of figure out how we're going to schedule the practicals. So any other questions on any of that stuff, the dates, preparation, as far as what you need to have done before and everything for interviewing? Nothing? Okay. So what I wanted to cover first here, let's see. Well, I wanted to cover some of the questions that you can expect to be asked. And also those of you that interviewed in October, feel free to chime in and add to this as well, because I know that they do change the questions a little bit, each time they do a new class. But generally speaking, I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what they ask or what you might be able to see. So I kind of just keep a running list that I share with everyone. However, those of you that have interviewed and know of other things that they may have asked, please, like I say, chime in and let it be known. Let me turn on my screen here. Let's see. Okay. So this is a list, a kind of the current list that I've kind of been using. And the only things that I'm, that we're going to really cover here is the dispatch related questions. You obviously may get some HR style questions where, tell me about a time that you had to show leadership in a group setting with, with a blindfold on and, anyway, all those dumb questions. Those are kind of up to you guys to figure that out. But as far as dispatch job related questions, you can see here by looking at the list, primarily one of the big things, and just to kind of so you guys kind of know the flow of the interview, they typically will have you do a test before you go in an interview, and that test will consist of weather questions, legal to go questions, alternate questions, alternate minimums, chart minimums, different things like that. Kind of just a wide array of things that you can expect to see on a daily basis as a dispatcher. So the big key ingredient, just so you guys know, when they're doing new hire interviews, the stuff that they want to see is the stuff that they know you're going to be using every single day. The stuff that you will be using on every single release that you dispatch, any flight that you dispatch. So they want to know that you have the basics down. And so you'll see kind of from the questions and from that pre-interview test that they give you as you're waiting, that's what all of that is kind of based on. So that's what we're really going to cover here and go over. But as far as the actual questions, like in the interview, you can see here, name the 3 joint responsibilities between the dispatcher and the PIC. Anybody on here have those fresh on their memory that just want to rattle them off for us?
It's PPDD, pre-flight planning, delay, and dispatch.
Yeah, so the joint responsibilities between the dispatcher and the pilot in command, pre-flight planning, dispatch, like the dispatch release, and delay, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, and one more thing about that. When I went in and actually talked to them after I interviewed, one of the things they told me is that they do want the answers to the FARs to be almost the exact wording from the FAR.
Correct. Yes.
So, if you put like delay, they're probably not going to accept that. You got to like put just every single word exactly how the FAR is. That was one of the critiques they gave me afterwards.
Yeah, and I think in this case, I think delay is exactly as it is in the FAR. So.
Oh, is it? Well, I have it written somewhere else, so that's my bad.
Yeah. So yeah, but no, she is right. That's kind of, hopefully over the class, as we've been teaching, that's what we've wanted to reiterate is I know that we will teach acronyms and easier ways of trying to memorize these things, but they do like to know that you know exactly what it says. But so if you're asked that question and you were to say, so pre-flight planning, dispatch release, and delay, or you can do that in any order. They're not going to care about the order that you say it in, but that would be those three things, and that would be what they want to hear because that's exactly what it says in the FAR.
So they are a little lenient on that in the interview. Not very, like I'm not telling you not to study exactly how it is in the FAR. And actually in the FAR, there's like this little part where it's like delay the flight in the opinion of the dispatcher and the pilot in command. The flight is not safe to operate or something like that. But if you have pre-flight planning, dispatch release, and delay, they're going to accept that. But yeah, Julia and Aaron, if you do get hired down the road, they are very much sticklers on that, just a heads up. So,
Courtney, after you told me that when we were studying at your house that day about needing to know that one word for word, I put it as my screensaver, like my background on my phone.
Smart.
I see it
That's a good idea.
every day.
Yeah, that is.
Can you tell me what I missed a little bit? Because I kind of filled in like 5 minutes ago.
Matt, you're probably going to have to just watch the recording because we
Okay.
don't really want to go back at the expense of everybody else right now that we already talked about.
No problem.
Just wait until it's uploaded and you can watch it. You haven't missed much though. We're talking about dates and stuff.
Okay.
This is really as far as the preparation part, we just really began. So name the 3 sole responsibilities of a dispatcher. Anybody want to throw them out there?
The monitoring of the flight, provide all information for the safety of the flight, and to cancel or redispatch the flight.
Yeah. So as far as the way that the FAR says them, that's pretty much spot on. I think the only difference would be monitoring the progress of the flight. So monitoring the progress of the flight, issuing safety information to the
issuing
flight.
necessary information for the safety of the flight. Sorry, I just have it memorized now because it's on my phone.
No, that's good because I want to hear them. I don't have them in front of me right here. So
it's let's see. The aircraft dispatcher is responsible for monitoring the progress of each flight, issuing necessary information for the safety of the flight, and canceling or redispatching a flight if, in his opinion, the flight cannot operate safely. I think that's it.
Yeah, it's basically cancel or redispatch the flight when in the opinion of the dispatcher and the pilot in command, the flight cannot be operated safely. But you don't have to say all that part. So on that one, if you just said monitoring the progress of the flight, issuing necessary safety information to the flight, and cancel or redispatch, that would be acceptable. Any questions on that? So it's kind of like a two-part question, but, or, you know, it's one FAR, but they will ask it as two questions typically, okay? You may only get asked one half of that question. You may ask to list all 6 things, you know, and they can ask the question in any form. So just be prepared for that. But as long as you know the distinction between which ones are shared between the dispatcher and the PIC and which ones are the sole responsibility of the dispatcher, you will not have any issues, regardless of how they ask you. Okay? So name the 4 factors for computing fuel.
Wah. Come on, students. You remember this one?
Oh, yeah. The weather. Oh, I know it. Weather.
This is like the only one I got completely right. I know for sure.
Oh, it's weather and wind, approach and possible missed approach, traffic, that's an A though. Oh, anticipated traffic and just any other conditions.
Yeah, so
right? Wind and weather.
Wind and weather,
Yeah.
That's one thing. Okay, so make sure if asked that question, that wind and weather just is one thing by itself, even though it's, you know, 2 things in reality. So wind and weather, that's one thing. And then an instrument approach. So be careful on the way you say that one, because it is an instrument approach. Okay? An instrument approach and a possible missed approach. Right? And that is, so here's another question. Is that at the destination or is that at the alternate?
Destination.
Correct.
Destination.
Yeah, so an instrument approach and a possible missed approach, and anticipated traffic delays, and lastly, any other thing that might delay the landing of your flight. Any questions or input on that one?
No.
Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Great. Let's see. Okay. Name the 3 things that the PIC must carry with him or her on the plane to its destination.
Release, flight plan, load manifest.
Correct. Make sure you say dispatch release, though.
Oh, sorry.
All good. All good.
That's my lazy side.
Yeah. It gets technical nowadays, especially like on the FAA side of things, like because a dispatch release is for a 121 flight, a flight release is for a 135 flight, and so on and so forth. Like there's different terminology. So, but a dispatch release is for a Part 121 operated flight. So dispatch release, load manifest, flight plan. In fact, there was one. In fact, I knew that there was a question on here that was missing. Actually, we'll put it on this. So we'll ask it with this next question. So, so name the 5 required items that have to be on a dispatch release.
Ooh, me. Can I answer it?
Go for it, Courtney.
An aircraft tail number, the flight number, all the airports listed, all the weather, the type of operation, and the minimum dispatch fuel. Well, that one's an
Is that
extra one,
the
but I've been practicing.
is that the damn it?
Yes, damn it.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, everything that you said except for one. There was one thing you named that does not have to be on there.
The minimum
Weather.
dispatch fuel.
Nope, weather.
Oh, weather.
Yeah,
Sorry, I got too excited.
all good. That actually leeways into the next question that's not on here, but you guys can write down. So yeah, so just to recap, the 5 required items on a dispatch release. Aircraft tail number.
Isn't the
Go ahead.
isn't the weather attached to it though? Like
Yeah,
it's
we'll
still
cover that on this next thing that I'm going to talk about though.
Oh, okay.
So aircraft tail number, flight number, all airports that you intend to potentially use, okay? You don't have to state it like that, but just saying all airports is fine. But that means your origin, your destination, and any type of alternate, whether it be a takeoff alternate, a destination alternate, a performance alternate, a drift down alternate, any type of alternate. So just say all airports, and then type of operation, IFR or VFR, and minimum fuel supply.
So I taught my class a good acronym for it, and that's why I said damn it. D is destination, departure, intermediate or alternate airports, so any airport. A is for type of flight, so whether that's IFR or VFR. M is for Minto fuel. I is for ID number or tail number of the aircraft, and then T is for trip number. Pretty easy.
So on the A, how does the A relate to the type of operation?
A type of flight.
How
you word it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Type of flight.
Yeah.
in parentheses.
Yep. A type of flight.
Aren't you so smart?
But all you do is,
Hey, it worked.
yeah, the first thing you do when they ask that question is just in your brain, do not say this
Do
out
not
loud.
say that in St. George.
Yes. Just in your head, just cuss, and you're good.
Damn it.
I knew they were going to ask that question. Boom.
Okay, so here's the one that I forgot to type in here. What must either be on the release? What 2 items must either be on the release or attached to the release?
MELs? Is that what you're looking for?
Not MELs. Nope.
That's the weather.
That's the
NOTAM?
weather. NOTAMs is usually in the weather package, so it kind of gets lumped in with weather. So weather and what other thing?
Are you sure it's not MELs? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, because the
Does
MEL.
that have anything to do with the E-tops?
No.
No.
It is one of the 3 things that a PIC must carry with him on the plane to its destination, though.
The load manifest?
Nope.
The flight plan.
The flight plan.
There we go.
Okay, so yeah, so you may get asked what must either so that's it's kind of a little bit of a tricky question because it's the weather and the flight plan can either be on the actual release or attached to the release. So a lot of people kind of get like when you talk about the 5 required items on a dispatch release, those 5 items have to be on the dispatch release, okay? Have to be. And those are the minimum items, okay? So you can have more stuff on a dispatch release, but you at least have to have those 5. So like in the case of SkyWest, they put the weather and the flight plan on the release. So it's not attached to it, but it's actually on it. So anyway, so just a little side note, but you could get asked the question, what item may be, or what 2 items can either be on the release or attached to the release, and that is your weather and your flight plan. Okay, moving along. The 1, 2, 3 rule. Does everybody feel like they have a really good grasp on the 1, 2, 3 rule? A lot of this part is going to be, the rest of this stuff on here is really going to be stuff that you're going to have to put into practice. So it's not like they're going to ask you to explain the 1, 2, 3 rule. They're going to, this is where you're going to actually, this is going to be part of your pre-interview test. So they're just going to be able to see whether you understand it, because they're going to give you, a set of TAFs and a set of ETA times, and they're going to say, does a flight with an ETA time of 1830 Zulu based on this TAF require an alternate? And you're going to have to put yes or no. Does somebody who recently took that test, I guess even Garrett if you want, do you want to kind of go into a little bit more depth about that test, about kind of the layout?
Yeah, so you'll probably have about an entire page, maybe 2 pages. I can't remember exactly how many, but half of them are going to be asking you if the flight is legal to dispatch, and it's just going to have TAF for that. And then there's going to be another.
Which test is it?
This is a test that you take at your interview. So you have like a half an hour to take this test, but half of them are going to be, is this flight legal to dispatch? And it's going to give you an ETA and then the TAF, and you're going to have to say yes or no. And then there's going to be another section where it's going to say, does this require an alternate? And you're going to have to figure out whether or not it requires an alternate. Now, that's pretty much the extent of it. I don't remember there being any of the 3585 or 17347 now is what it's called. I don't remember that being on there, and I don't think they would penalize you even if it was on there, because that's now airline specific. It's a requirement that's airline specific. So if that was something that you guys had learned about and talked about at some former time, don't worry about that. I know I'm not teaching my class that right now because that's airline specific anymore, and each exemption is a little different depending on the airline you're working with. But yeah, just focus on your legal to go and does this require an alternate. Now, I've gone through this with my class. We've spent like a good 2 days working 2 hours about on TAFs alone. Adam, do they all have the access to that Google Drive?
Yeah, but what we actually were going to do, what I was going to see if you wanted to do on here, Garrett, is pull up some weather and just do some live, legal to go, alternate, and does it need like 1, 2, 3 rule stuff, legal to go stuff, and calculating alternate minimum stuff.
Do you want me to do that right now, or do you want to do that after these questions?
Well, we're kind of at that point now, because the rest of these questions are all going to be related to weather. They're going to ask you to read a METAR, or they're going to ask you to read a TAF and a PIREP or 2, and possibly NOTAMs. So if you want to just be pulling up off of the WSI site, TAFs, METARs, PIREPs, and NOTAMs. You guys can kind of run through all of that.
Yeah, I'm almost there.
Okay.
I'm pulling it up right now, actually.
And then, the 1 navade, 2 navade rule. And then obviously, in order to figure that out, we're going to have to look at some airport approach plate charts. So, but yeah, so before we dive into the rest of that part, does anybody have any other questions on the main questions up there, or in those of you that interviewed, did you see any other questions outside of those basic ones that we already went through that are, dispatch related questions?
Are you gonna go over so I don't really know how I did on this because they didn't exactly tell you, but they give you like 5 different scenarios and have you put them in order of how soon you think you should do those.
Oh, it's like a priority. Yeah, so they will do that on the interview. The only pointer I can give you guys on that is there's going to be 5 flights, 5 problems that are going on. So I don't really have an answer as to what they're looking for. All I know is that you need to remember when you're doing that, like these 5 flights, there's going to be 2 or 3 that are on the ground problems, and then there's going to be 2 or 3 that are in the air problems. Just remember that it's always most concerning, regardless of the time, if you have a flight in the air, that's your priority every time, because they don't have a place to set it down. On the ground is your second priority. They can wait for a release, or they can wait for whatever it is. So that's the only suggestion or recommendation I have on that part of the test.
I'm going to tag in on the back half of you on that one, Garrett. Anytime with airline, you don't know, safety. And like he said, the ones in the air, that's a safety issue. An aircraft not being able to land, go around, safety. Emphasis on safety. You will never go wrong on any job in an airline using that word or putting safety above. Oh, I need to help a passenger find their bag. Oh, I have a plane in the sky. What's more safe? Go with the safety option.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
And Garrett, look up Detroit weather.
Oh, is that pretty fun right now?
Yeah.
So just to kind of just in case anybody is confused on what they're talking about there, is that they give you a scenario, and it's kind of like it's supposed to be like a real time scenario. Like you're a dispatcher, you're sitting at your desk, and all of a sudden you have 5 flights, and they tell you the flights, okay, you have this one that's going here and they're about to take off. You have this one that's sitting at the gate, they're about to start taxiing. You have this one that's in the air headed to Denver. And, they tell you, kind of the situation with each flight, but they're basically, they're what they're trying to see is you as a dispatcher, if you have something come up and you need to address an issue with all 5 of these flights, how, in what priority order are you going to handle those issues? And basically what Garrett is saying, you always handle the flights in the air first, and then the ones on the ground. Now, the scenario that they give you may be a little bit different than the ones that, these guys got back in October or November. In fact, I expect them to probably change it up a little bit. But just remember that the way you usually want to handle the situation is, and they're going to give you small little hints. You want to prioritize the ones in the air, like Garrett and Andrea were saying, but furthermore, between those ones, you're obviously going to have to figure out which of those 2 or 3 that are in the air are you going to take on first. And typically it's going to be either the one that is on the lowest on fuel or the one that is closest to landing, and they'll present the situation and they'll probably make it pretty obvious. But if you have one that is going into an airport that just got closed down for a thunderstorm, and it was on the landing approach or something, or about to get cleared into land, that's typically the one, that's going to be the one that's probably the lowest on fuel. But if they give you fuel numbers, you usually want to handle the one in the air with the least amount of fuel first. And they're probably going to give you little hints as to which one is in, kind of more of a grave situation than the others. So just listen for those little hints and cues, and then just remember that the air and then the ground, and handle ones that are, take on fuel first, or unless there's some other type of a emergency scenario or something like that going on.
I had one more thing, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but when they were asking you for weather abbreviations, I know they had like 9, I think, on there. Are those, I guess what I'm asking, is there any way that we could maybe find out which ones are like the most commonly used or something, so we don't have to memorize like 100 different weather abbreviations to try to figure out which 9 are going to be on there? There's
only like 30 or so. I've got Chegg, which is a flashcard app.
Oh, that's right. I downloaded that. I just need your set.
Yeah, so I've got a flashcard set that I can pass on to you guys.
That would be awesome.
But there's no way to tell which ones they're going to use,
Yeah.
You
I was
can.
just wondering, I'm sitting here with so many, like a huge list, and I'm like, well, this is going to take up a huge part of my day. Start studying those.
I'm trying to find it right now for you, Courtney. It's a government website. I have it written down at home. I'm on the road, and I thought my iPad had it, but my iPad is not connecting right now. There's a government website, and they're in boxes, and it has it. So I'll keep looking while we're talking.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And like you said, there's not that many, but or that the boys said, but there is a government website that lists all of them. So I'll work on finding that right now.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to rack my brain and think of like all the different things that were on there, because like I was so nervous that
Girl.
but like I remember that being a huge, like that was a bunch of questions. There was a bunch of approach plate questions, and FARs, obviously, METARs,
Yes.
and
So
obviously.
yeah, so I'll look for that, and we'll get you there.
Yeah, and part of this too is we're going to bring up the weather and, go over some of those acronyms that are in the weather, those abbreviations, as well as we're going to jump in, especially so those of you that were in the last class, we are going to, or Garrett here is going to pull up some of the METARs and stuff, but we're going to also put some focus on the remarks in the METARs and the remarks and stuff, go through the entire PIREP stuff and the remarks in the PIREPs, because I know that is one area where, when I got feedback from the last interviews that Bill mentioned, and in this current class, we've done a lot more in-depth coverage of all that stuff. So, but for you guys that were in the last class that didn't have as much of that, we're going to show it here and kind of bring it up here. But also, when you get done with when we get off of this call, so you can have some stuff that if you want to know where to pull it up. Garrett put some links on there and in the chat box here. So make sure you go into those links and download those. A lot of that stuff's going to have those acronyms on there, especially for the remarks and the METARs, and it'll show you, what they are, what they mean, how to read them, because even though the remarks aren't widely used necessarily by dispatchers, a lot of times that information in the METARs can be useful if a dispatcher knows how to read it and knows what it actually is. And so they kind of want to see that you have some idea as to what it's saying instead of just completely disregarding the remarks. So let's see. So yeah, what I'm gonna try to do here, Garrett, is I will stop sharing on my screen. Does it allow you to turn yours on?
Let's take a look.
Okay.
Everybody see my screen?
And so the other thing we have to do here, Garrett, is because I've been recording on mine.
Mhm.
So I'm going to pause my recording and you need to start yours as recording.
Okay.